are now joined by the great Fee Waybill from the Tubes. How are you today, Fee?
I'm pretty good. I'm a little jet lagged. We just got back from a month in Europe.
Oh my gosh! What were some of the countries that were the highlights for you this time?
We went to Germany. We did 5 shows in Germany. We did a big festival there in Stuttgart, the Rock of Ages Festival, which is a big deal there.
Sure.
3-day festival with a ton of bands, and we played Amsterdam, and then we went to the UK. We played 9 shows in the UK. We played Bristol and Brighton and Southampton, London, Manchester, Glasgow, Scotland, Leeds, Edinburgh, Scotland, Wolverhampton, which is pretty much Birmingham.
Yeah, you pretty much hit all the spots. Now how long has it been since you've been to those the European market?
We went in. It's been like 3 years. It's been since 2012, and then we ended up in. Last show was in Gothenburg, Sweden, and which is pretty cool. Just like the most beautiful girls in the whole world.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Everywhere. You're walking around town, and
they grow
every
those
girl is
blondes
stunning,
up there.
All blonde, every one of them. I mean, God knows what brunettes do there. I mean, I guess probably they're way in demand because there's so few of them. Everyone's probably sick of blondes.
Yeah, they're probably the coveted breed at that point.
Yeah, we had a really nice time, and we worked really hard, though. Boy, I just worked my butt off, and we did like 16 shows in about, gosh, I think we had about 5 days off, so like 21 days. We just never stopped.
Amazing stuff. Well, if we could go back a second, I mean, for some kids from Phoenix, it's been a bit of a charmed life being able to see the world, and 40 some years later now they're still asking for the Tubes over there. It must be.
Yeah, this is actually
nice
this year's our 40th anniversary.
Wow.
40th anniversary tour, world tour.
Amazing stuff. Now I know you migrated to San Francisco back in the day as 2 different groups. So you guys kept in touch. How did you guys merge all together in Frisco?
Well, I went as a roadie. I started as a roadie. I was friends with Roger and Prairie, who were in a band in Arizona called the Red, White, and Blues Band. And then Prairie got a scholarship to the San Francisco Art Institute because he was a great artist. He still is. So he had a scholarship to go to art school for free. So he went, well, I got to go to San Francisco. And so Roger and the other guy, there was a bass player in the band and named David, and they said, yeah, okay, let's go. And I was kind of a hanger-oner. I used to go to see him play all the time, and they didn't have anybody to help him. And so they said, you want to come with us? You want to be our roadie? And they didn't have a roadie, I guess, and so I said, okay, I'll go. And I drove the truck to San Francisco, and with all the equipment we had, and so we lived there for about maybe 2 years, just as a trio. And there was a manager guy, a guy named John, who was like also a high school friend, and so we lived there for a couple of years, and we would whenever we ran out of money, we would go back to Arizona because they were well known there, and they would be able to make money. So we go back to Arizona and we play a gig, and tell everybody how great it was in California, and what the hell are they doing hanging around here in Arizona, because you're not going to make it out of Arizona. Even Alice Cooper had to go to Michigan to make it, to get out of there. And so another band from Bill Spooner's band called the Beans, they decided to leave and move to San Francisco on our say-so. So they showed up. They moved there, and they were a quartet, and they started doing gigs, and then the bass player for Roger's band left the band. He quit and moved to Hawaii. He said he wanted to go to Hawaii to grow pot instead of being in a band. And so, okay, well, and then so Roger, and for months they tried to find another guy. They put ads in the Free Press in San Francisco looking for a bass player, and we tried all these guys out, and they all were sucked. And And they were playing original music, and they weren't a cover band. They were playing original music, and Roger is a great guitar player, and it was kind of real whacked out psychedelic kind of music, and Prairie going crazy on the drums, and it was kind of intimidating to a lot of people, and so they couldn't find a bass player, and so we used to practice every day, and I had been a singer all my life. In high school I was a theater major, and I did a million musical comedies, and always singing, and my family was always singing. My mother was a singer, and excuse me. So I would go down and sing the bass player's part, because he was pretty much the lead singer of the band, and so I would go sing his part, and we'd dick around in our garage in San Francisco, and then the manager of Bill's band, a guy named Lauren, and our manager John, they got together and they said, well, why don't we make it a big Arizona super band and combine everyone into one band? And so we couldn't find a bass player, so we went, oh, great, that sounds great. And so we joined Bill's band, and so I was kind of left out because they already had 2 roadies or 3 roadies. They didn't need any roadies. And so I said, well, I'm a pretty good singer. How about if I sing background vocals? And they said, okay, fine. And it didn't really matter how many guys you had because there was no money anyway.
Right.
You took whatever money you made, and you went to farmer's market, and you bought a 25-pound bag of brown rice, and you bought a can of, like, government cheese in a can. And I used to make, and tortillas, and I was the cook also. So I would make what I called cheese lake, which was like a tortilla covered in melted cheese with rice and beans on top. And so we joined his band, and so we had 2 guitar players and 2 drummers. And then, unfortunately, Bob McIntosh, their drummer, got cancer and ended up dying in '73, which is ridiculous because he was the only guy in the band who didn't take drugs. All the rest of us were just going berserk, smoking pot and doing drugs and taking LSD and drinking, and Bob was the only guy. He was totally pure, totally, he was his hair down to his butt, and he's the one who gets cancer and dies. So that sucked pretty much, and so then we continued to play and play and play, and then we finally got, in '74, we got a deal. We got a record deal with A&M Records. And
well, tell us a little bit about, going to San Francisco, obviously the Summer of Love, the whole hippie movement, psychedelics and all that. Like you say, it was quite a haven for a lot of partaking. But tell us about how it evolved with the whole theatrical, the whole satirical, the whole, visual side.
Well, I was, like I said, I was a theater major, so I wanted to do, weird costume stuff, and Prairie and Mike Cotton, who ended up joining the band, he was also another guy who really couldn't play in the beginning, but he moved from Phoenix also, and Mike bought himself this synthesizer, an ARP synthesizer, and he started. He just said, "Well, I'll just make weird noises," and we went, "Okay, well, fine, you make weird noises." And so then we kind of when we first joined the band, Bill had this kind of. It was kind of very Spinal Tap from the beginning. He had a piece of music that was about 30 minutes long, and it was called The Ascension of the Mother Lode. And it was kind of a sarcastic piece. One of the songs was called Our Lord is a Hot Dog. And so Prairie says, well, what if we like, we'll be the spacemen. And, so we made like spacesuits out of cardboard and mylar and urethane foam. And we would, in the beginning, we didn't have enough material, to play like a whole 90-minute set. So Bill would start with his band, and he'd play about 30 minutes, and then he'd bring on we were called the Radar Men from Uranus. And we would come out with these Mylar cardboard suits on, and we would do this piece, Ascension of the Motherlode. And then after that, we would just kind of throw in, various cover songs. One of the first theatrical songs we ever did was me dressed as a cowboy, and I did El Paso by Marty Robbins, right? And I would come out as a cowboy with big fur chaps and a hat, and in the song, the guy gets killed, right? And so I would put this bag of stage blood under my shirt, and when it came to the part where he gets killed, I'd slap my chest, and the stage blood would explode under my shirt. And so there'd be blood all over the place. And everybody thought that was great, and so we got such a good reaction from the theatrics, that we went, well, this is really great. And so, I mean, I used to do Carmen Miranda. We used to do Brazil, the song Brazil, in Portuguese, and I learned it in Portuguese, and I would come out as Carmen Miranda with, like, maracas for tits and a big headdress full of fruit, like she used to wear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would eat the fruit during the song. I'd pick off the grapes and the bananas and eat the fruit as I sang. So it just kind of started as a way to be different. Because
right.
in San Francisco, there was just so many bands. There was so many bands. And, we used to, I remember the first time we worked for Bill Graham. Bill Graham had the Fillmore West, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we used to, a couple of us actually worked as janitors for him for a while, sweeping the floor of the Fillmore West. And every Tuesday night, excuse me, I'm trying to recover from the tour. Sure. My voice is a little froggy.
No problem.
But every Tuesday night was audition night. And so we talked Bill into letting us audition because I was there sweeping the damn floor.
Right.
And so I said, Bill, just let us audition. So we auditioned and did our space show and the bit with the cowboy, and he loved it. He thought it was just hilarious, and everybody loved it. And so that was we kind of opened the door with the theatrics, and then we went on we found this guy named Kenny Ortega, who you may have heard of.
Sure.
He's become very famous now, and Kenny heard about us, and he wanted to be a choreographer. And he was at the time he had just come off the road from a regional tour of Hair,
mm-hmm.
and he was just a dancer, and he wanted to get into choreography. So he approached us and said, let me choreograph some of this theatrical stuff you're doing, and we said, okay, great, no problem. And so he went out and found these dancing girls to join the band, Leela and the Snakes, who were pretty much strippers. They were strippers on Broadway,
yeah.
But they had this kind of comedy troupe where they would do these little comedy bits in clubs. And so they joined in, and then we had a female singer, Ree Stiles, who was, also gorgeous and scantily clad, which was always good in San Francisco. And so she joined the band, and she became like the featured vocalist. So we just kind of, with Kenny helping, we developed this whole kind of theatrical presentation where we would, hi Blanca, we would kind of develop songs kind of based on the sarcasm and the parody that we learned in Arizona, because we all grew up in Arizona where it was 120 every day, and so pretty much people would stay inside and watch TV all day. We'd watch
right.
game shows and westerns, cowboy westerns and sitcoms and I Love Lucy and Gunsmoke and Sky King. And so we kind of got really sarcastic, because it was such a load of shit, and that kind of developed into songs, What Do You Want From Life and White Punks on Dope, and songs that were kind of a sarcastic portrayal of the society,
mm-hmm.
lived in. And I mean, it was such a shock to move from Phoenix, which is, probably the reddest state in the USA, the most conservative, all retired people,
right?
Mostly wealthy, Barry Goldwater.
Not exactly the cutting edge.
Right. It's all very, very conservative. Blanca, you don't have to do the sheets because I just got home yesterday. Okay, thank you. My housekeeper just got here.
Sure.
Uh,
so she went from the most conservative to the most liberal.
Right. Exactly. From one end of the extreme to the other, and we were just rolling in it. We just got away with whatever we wanted. Our dancing girls in the beginning, all of our girls came out topless. They were completely topless and practically naked from the waist down, and nobody cared in San Francisco. We got away with murder. Nobody cared. We never got in trouble until we left, until we got a record deal, and they said, okay, let's do a national tour, and we went out in '75 on this national tour, and played these little small theaters, like 1,000, 1,500 seat small theaters in rural America, or not rural, but pretty much anything outside of San Francisco wasn't going to go for naked girls.
Right.
And so then we started getting in trouble, and then we started, having to cover this up, cover that up, so.
Wow. And I know early on you had the opportunity to open for such bands like the New York Dolls and Zeppelin and Iggy Pop. Tell us about some of those experiences.
Well, we opened for Led Zeppelin in, 72 or 73, and we played, it was at a football stadium, Kezar Stadium.
Mm-hmm. It was a Bill Graham show?
It was a Bill Graham show. And it was Led Zeppelin, Lee Michaels, and the Tubes. And the show, it was a daytime show. It started at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And, and they had let all these people into the stadium the night before, so the whole place was full of people camped out.
Wow.
And so we went on at 10:30, and we're trying to do a big show, it was one of the first times I ever did Quaalude with the big shoes, right?
Yeah.
And I told everybody I was gonna throw them cocaine because I wanted them all to wake up. So I had a big bag of flour, and I was like dumping cocaine off the stage. And then Quaaludes. And I said, no, I got a bunch of Quaaludes now. So then I threw a bunch of pills, Quaalude pills, and only they were just, white sugar pills.
Right.
And, of course, the audience didn't appreciate it. They threw the pills back at us, and they screamed Led Zeppelin. They screamed, get off the stage. And the police were there, and the police went for it. The police really believed I'm throwing bags and bags of drugs to the audience, and they want to bust us. And so then Bill stepped in and went, no, guys, come on. This is all bullshit, okay? It's all fake. It's not real. And so he saved us from being arrested, and then we went on to work for Bill for years and years and years, and
what can you say about Bill? I just went to the Skirball Museum and saw the incredible, the whole Bill Graham show of just decades of posters. He practically invented the festival and the merch and the multi, different types of music on the same bill. What can you say about an innovator like Bill Graham?
Well, Bill was a very cool guy. From the very beginning, he liked us. We were good guys, and he, like I said, when we used to sweep the floor there, and he liked the fact that we were young, hard-working guys, and we were very respectful because it was Bill's city, it was Bill's town.
Yeah.
And so whenever we would do a show, we wanted to do a show on our own, like we did one show. We did a Mondo Bondage show where it was all bondage. Every song was bondage, and everybody was wearing bondage, and all the girls were dressed in leather bondage, because that was, San Francisco's got a big gay population, and that was one of the very first impressions, shocking impressions that there's not a lot of bondage going on in Phoenix. And so we get to Polk Street in Castro, and there's all these, homosexual guys, wearing bondage on the street, and we're just oh my God, and so we adopted that, and then one show we did a streakers ball. Remember streaking?
Oh yeah.
We did a streakers ball where if you came naked, you got in free, and so there we are at a little club on Columbus Avenue, and outside the theater is all these people standing there naked with their clothes in their paper bag. So the deal was you have to come in, you have to streak the audience, and then you can go put your clothes on. So, I mean, it was a huge mistake because, we made no money at all. We didn't think anybody'd show up naked. Well, the whole place showed up naked. So, but we would always, before we did anything, we would clear it with Bill. We would tell Bill, this is, we want to do this. Is this okay with you? Because he hired us a lot. We used to work at Winterland all the time. We opened for Kiss at Winterland because Bill thought we were cool.
Yeah.
And we would play softball. There was like a celebrity, not a celebrity, but like a rock and roll softball team in San Francisco, a softball league where all the rockers would play softball. And we played with Bill and Bill's wife. And he was just one of the biggest mistakes I think we ever made was not going with Bill for management. He wanted to be our manager, and we went, oh no, we're going to get. He had a lot of bands that he managed, and he wanted this guy, one of his guys, to handle us, and we thought, no, we want if we're going to go with Bill, it's got to be Bill, and but he was too busy, to manage us. He was dealing with all the shows, and I think he was managing Santana at the time, and I don't know who else, but so.
You thought you might get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, we did, and we passed, and we really shouldn't have. We that was probably one of the many mistakes that we made.
Sure. Well, talk about signing with the revered label A&M Records, Herb Albert, Jerry Moss, the Sunset and La Brea Studios, and coming to Hollywood, the record plant, and Al Cooper. Talk about that.
Yeah, it was. Well, we signed with A&M, and I mean, I don't know why. We actually got signed via videotape. We sent all these companies
video demo,
and everybody pretty much passed on us except Herb and Jerry, and they thought it was they thought, well, we need they had like the Carpenters and Captain and Tennille and acts like that, and they thought, well, this might be cool to have like a weird cult group on our label, and so they signed us, and first thing we did was go paint. We painted this Charlie Chaplin Studios where they had their their complex, and Prairie and Mike and all of us actually, we got a job painting giant flying records on the side of the building, and which was, they were there for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Just recently, well, I guess it wasn't recently, but a while ago they.
Sure, I remember those.
And so they thought we were cool. They thought we were cool, and they gave us a deal, and we went. I don't know really how Al Cooper got into the picture. I don't know. Al was a cool guy. He was really cool. It was just a complete freak show, though. It was, the engineer was a coke dealer, and he was selling coke out of the studio. And Al was, I think this was before he was married, so he was a real womanizer. So he was like, half the time he was, had women in the jacuzzi, because the original record plant had a jacuzzi. And so we're in there in the studio trying to record. Well, the engineer's out selling coke to somebody, and Al's in the jacuzzi with some girl.
Wow.
So it's just we didn't know what the hell was going on. So, but we managed to struggle through the first album, and White Punks on Dope and What Do You Want from Life are still like classics for us.
Sure.
They want to hear them,
And that album cover with the album being torn open, was that Roger, or who came up with that?
No, that was Prairie and Mike did all the artwork.
Oh, wow.
And the tube around the girl was Ree, our singer. That was her, and she ended up being Prairie's girlfriend for a while. But we did all of our own artwork. Every album was something we created. The second album with the credit card, Young and Rich. Every single album was a concept that we created ourselves. That's what I mean. That was the deal with the tubes. We didn't want anybody telling us what to do. We wanted to do it ourselves.
Came with the full package: the music, the art, the visuals.
Right. We did it all ourselves. And actually, the New York Dolls. when we played with the Dolls, that was in a little dinky club on Broadway in San Francisco, and they kind of spawned the whole Quaalude character because we were there early in the day, and they came in for sound check, and they David Johansen and Johnny Thunder and all they came in, and they're dressed, they came out off the street, and they're dressed in their like glam outfits that they wear on stage.
Right.
They're all wearing rings and hair.
That was them.
Platform shoes and silver, and and we're just going, unbelievable. These guys are, it's not just a show. These guys are living it here.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of, parody that, and that was when Quaalude was born. And I said, well, what if I get, I actually took 2 quart tomato juice cans. Actually, there were, I think, half gallons. There were big tomato juice cans. And I dumped out the tomato juice, and I gaffer taped them to the bottom of my shoes for the Quaalude character, right? And it wasn't called Quaalude. He was called Rod Planet originally, Rod Planet, and because I was a Rod Stewart fan, right, and a Robert Plant fan, so Rod Planet with these big tomato juice cans, gaffer taped to my shoes, and the hilarious thing was, as I came out and did the number, the cans collapsed.
Sure.
They have ribs around them. Tomato juice cans. They have ribs around them, so they just they went from being 8 inches tall to 3 inches, 2 inches tall, because they
an accordion
collapsed down. They accordioned down. Yeah, it was hilarious. And then I thought, that kind of sucked, and so I thought, well, I won't take the tomato juice out of them. I'll just strap them on there, full, and then they won't collapse. But then they weighed like, 10 pounds each, so that I couldn't move because I'm dragging around these 4 giant, one in the front, one in the back, 4 giant tomato juice cans.
50 pounds of juice.
And so, that didn't work either. And so, the Quaalude shoes evolved over the years. There was many, many different, we had one pair of Quaalude shoes that were fiberglass, and inside of the clear fiberglass with the insides hollow, and in the insides we filled them up with water and put goldfish in the inside.
Oh, wow.
Plastic goldfish.
Sure. Well, I know by the Remote Control album you worked with Todd Rundgren. Of course, he had done the Dolls and Grand Funk and so much. How did that pairing come about?
Well, I don't know actually how it came about.
Somebody at the label?
It was one of the, probably somebody at the label. We used a different. We never had the same producer twice.
Right.
So
you had Ken Scott, who worked with Bowie.
Yeah, we had Cooper, and then we had Ken Scott, who worked with Bowie and the Beatles, and then we had this guy John Anthony, who did the third album, Tubes Now. And he went completely insane and walked out in the middle of the project because we drove him crazy. And and then we did a live album. Pete Henderson did the live album, who's an English guy, and then the 5th album was Todd for Remote Control, and that record, we had this. It was kind of a concept. Well, actually, it was a completely plagiarized concept, where I read this book. I'm an avid reader. Okay, so I read this book called Being There, by Jerzy Kosinski, and I had read his other books, and he had made a big splash with a book called The Painted Bird, and that got a lot of attention. And then he wrote this book called Being There, and it was about the kid this English kid whose parents were too busy for him, and they pretty much sat him in front of a TV all day long, and as the babysitter, and his whole life experience was virtual through TV. And so I wrote this kind of I figured, well, that nobody's ever heard of. This book was obscure. It was small. Nobody ever heard of this. So I came up with this whole idea of and I kind of modified it a little based on our experience in Arizona, sitting in front of TV all day long. And I came up with this concept, and we had all these songs. We had a number of songs, and Todd, we sat down with him. And I said, well, I want to do this concept, and he said, well, you have these songs, but they don't really have anything to do with this concept. I said, I know. Well, let's work on it. And so he said, okay. So we would go into the studio, and in the morning, and we'd have these tracks, and it would be songs with different lyrics. So we would sit there and we would rewrite them every morning. We'd rewrite a song that fit into the concept of this, fit into this concept that I had about the TV. TV is king. I want it all now. All these songs that kind of fit around the concept of the kid who grew up watching TV, and I want it all now. I said that. Telecide, No Way Out, that all kind of had
right. Turn Me On.
It all kind of fit into the concept, and so every morning we would go in and we'd sit there and we'd write, and everybody together. We'd all sit there together, all 7 of us, and Todd. Todd's a writer on a lot of these songs, and we'd write this record, and then we break for lunch and we come back in the afternoon and we figure out what's the melody, how are we going to sing this, and whip it out, start doing vocals, start doing overdubs, so the whole thing was kind of happened day by day. There was really no pre-production at all. We kind of just figured it out, and we wrote it, and then 10 minutes later we went and put it down.
Wow.
And
amazing. So you learned a lot from working with Todd, and I know by the time you moved over to Capitol now, you started breaking through with the MTV stuff on Outside Inside with She's a Beauty, and talk about that new lease in life, a new label. You got MTV. You've definitely toned down a lot of the visuals, but you're getting across, on the MTV level now.
Yeah, well, we ended up Remote Control didn't do all that well. We loved it. We thought it was great, and that's why we had like the baby sitting in front of the spherical TV with a nipple on the front. That was like us. That was us. That was the way we grew up, but nobody got it, and the whole thing didn't work. And so A&M said, well, this really didn't work, and you're not selling any records, and we'll give you one more chance. And so we went and we made this. We kind of self-produced this record that never got released. We call it the Black Album, and it's kind of because of Spinal Tap, I guess. And so we made this record called the Black Album, and they hated it. A&M hated it, and they said it's too negative. It's not happening. And they pretty much said, well, we're not going to release it, but we're releasing you because we're kind of over this whole cult band thing, that Jerry and Herb thought was so cool, and it pretty much didn't make them any money. We ended up leaving A&M owing them a fortune, and never made any money. And so we left. So they released us, and it's a small business, or it was back then. Everybody knew, well, this band is a weird cult band that has a great live reputation, but they can't sell records, and they've never had a hit. And radio was important back then, unlike now.
It was everything, sure.
And so we looked and looked and looked, and we found a guy at Capitol Records, Bobby Columby, who was an A&R guy, and he used to be the drummer of Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby said, well, let's give these guys a shot. And so Capitol said, okay, we'll give you a shot. We'll give you one record deal. And so then, then they said, so then we started trying to find a producer. And we went through all these, Rick Wakeman wanted to produce this. And we said, no, we're not a keyboard band. This is not happening. And then, Jeff Baxter wanted to produce this. He showed up. And, not only did he showed up from L.A. and San Francisco, so we were very disdainful of producers showing up from L.A., right?
Yeah.
So Jeff shows up. He's got a fucking pistol in his back pocket, and he's wearing too much gold jewelry. And we just went, no, okay, no, you're not. You're out. Next. And and Richie Zito, and we went through 5 or 6 guys at least until we found David Foster. And Foster shows up, and here he is, this kind of unassuming Canadian guy, with no jewelry, wearing a sweatshirt and Levi's, and had just finished doing Boogie Wonderland, right? Earth, Wind, and Fire. And we were huge Earth, Wind, and Fire fans. We loved, although we don't, we never really played a lot of R&B kind of material. We loved them. We thought they were the greatest.
Sure. So
he showed up, and so we thought. Well, so first of all, right off the bat, he's okay. He's not wearing jewelry. He doesn't have a gun on him, and he's got short hair, and he's not a keyboard. Well, actually, he was a keyboard guy. He was a piano player,
right?
And he was in a band called Airplay, and years before this, and he was a piano player. But he had such good arrangement technique. The guy just was so good. He was a musician turned producer as opposed to an engineer turned producer. So we played him some songs, and and he kind of okay, and he'd sit with us in the studio, and this is when we were trying to figure out whether he was the guy or not.
Yeah.
And we would play him like Amnesia, and or play him Don't Want to Wait Anymore, and songs that we had that we had been writing, and he just in 10 minutes he would listen to it, he'd learn to play it, and then he'd kind of go, well, what if you did this here? What if you did kind of a modulation here, and you did the chord? He said, the problem with you guys is your songs don't pay off. Well, what do you mean? Well, they don't have a big chorus. They don't lift you up and just kick you in the fucking ass. They don't pay off at the end. They just kind of go along, and then they stop. And we went, oh, okay, well. And so he just, he turned Don't Want to Wait Anymore around in a heartbeat. Same thing with Amnesia, and same thing with all those songs on the Completion Backward Principle album.
Mm-hmm.
And we just went, oh fuck, this guy's fucking incredible. This guy's a genius. And we went, okay, we're on with you. We're on board with you. And so the Capitol, the guy had ridiculous credentials, so Capitol went, okay, good, let's go. And so we made Completion Backward Principle, and we had a hit with Talk to You Later, and we had a hit with Don't Want to Wait Anymore, and they kind of, whoa, this is great, and then we went on to do Outside Inside, and we had a hit with She's a Beauty, just the biggest hit we ever had, and so everything was fucking hunky dory.
Amazing. Well, I know it's been a great run. You've had songwriting credits, of course, with Richard Marx on the Vixen stuff. You've worked with Bryan Adams. You guys even opened for David Bowie back in '83 on the Glass Spider tour.
Right, we did a whole tour with Bowie with Peter Gabriel, opening. It was incredible. We had such a great time. It was ridiculous.
Now, what do you learn from touring with people like that?
Well, you learn how to be a pro.
Yeah.
You learn how to be a total pro. We're playing every night with 75,000 people. We never even come close to anything like that before. And we headlined a show in England in 78, 79 before the big hits. We were huge in Europe. Before the big hits in the States, we were giant in Europe. And and played big venues, and we headlined this festival called the Nebworth Festival, and that was about 60,000 people with us headlining, and we played with Frank Zappa, and Zappa was actually the headliner, but he didn't want to close. He didn't want to follow us. And so he came to us and said, "Look, I don't want to follow you guys with all this, the tits and ass and the production." And he said, "No, fuck that. I'm not going to do it." And we went, "Fine, okay, you go. We'll follow you. We'll headline." So we had some experience with that, but then, when we got to the Serious Moonlight tour, I mean, it was even bigger. It was, Edmonton Stadium with 75,000 Canadians, it just was. And he was so nice. David Bowie was so nice to us. It really taught us how to be a pro, and also taught us how to appreciate, other artists coming up. And he let us do, our whole show. And I mean, we did like an hour and 20 minutes as an opener.
Wow.
And he'd let us use our big sets and our props and our dancing girls and our costuming and all this, and it was quite an experience to open.
Yeah. So being a big star, you don't have to be an asshole.
No, exactly. He was so cool, and he hung out. He loved us. He would stand on the side of the stage, and what's her name? Yoko was at a bunch of the shows with Julian.
Yeah.
And who was a kid. I ended up later on. Julian loved me, and I sang on a bunch of his records later on. And he was just into it. He was just really into it. And I was a huge Bowie fan. I used to dye my hair red like him, and shave my eyebrows off like Ziggy Stardust. And but then I met Peter Gabriel, and he had Jerry Marotta on drums. I ended up using Jerry Marotta on my solo record because I thought he was so fucking great. And so yeah, it was really that was a big fun time. It was a fun time.
Amazing stuff. So now, all that you've seen in the business, what advice do you give to the youngsters today? I know the business has changed and it still evolves every day, but as far as creatively coming up with your own sound, coming up with great songs, the endurance and sacrifice it takes to hang in there, what advice do you give?
That's the deal. I mean, nobody wants to put in the time, do they?
Right.
That's the problem. That's nobody wants to put in the effort and the time, and it's too easy to get away with not doing that, not putting in the time. It's too easy to record your album on computer or on Pro Tools, and everything fixes it for you, doesn't it? It'll fix your time, it'll fix your pitch, it'll fix whatever. Hold on one second. It's the little woman on the. Hold on one second, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, honey. Okay, well, I'm doing an interview right now on the radio, on the phone. Okay, for the show this weekend. So I'll do it as soon as I get done. Okay. Okay. Bye.
So yeah, it takes out the humanity. It takes out the edges.
Right.
Without a mistake or a realness, it becomes a computer.
It's too easy. You gotta put in the time and learn to play. You cannot make shortcuts. I mean, why are there so many classic rock bands still out there on the road today?
Yeah.
Why are they still out there? Why are there bands who like the Foo Fighters? Dave Grohl is a friend of mine.
Sure.
And I sang on the Wasting Light album.
Yeah.
And no computers. No computers.
Right.
Zero.
Made in their garage.
They went back to with Mutt. They went back to two 24 tracks linked together, and only 48 tracks, and no flying in the chorus, no fixing it, no fixing no pitch, auto tune, no nothing. It was all real, You know,
all played.
It was all played. It was all real. There was no bullshit. So I mean, with this, that's the hard part with this, instant gratification kind of society that we have today. People don't want to spend the time. They don't. They get kind of good, and then they go, oh, well, this will fix it for me.
Anybody can make a record. Anybody can upload it to iTunes and shoot a shitty video and put it on YouTube tonight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's just a completely different business than it was, when we started. And there was none of that. There was no. I mean, we were 6 years before MTV.
Yeah.
And I was. MTV was a great way to promote your product, but once again, you had to kowtow to MTV, which we didn't really like. Them telling us, oh, you can't have a giant tit painted on a fucking screen, and they fuzzy focused it out.
Right.
And oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. But then you have to, your manager's going, well, you got to. MTV is a very important marketing tool, and you have to do this. And I went and was guest VJ for quite a few times on MTV, and but now, I mean, now it's just, like you said, you can have a song on YouTube in 15 minutes.
Sure.
So, what are you going to do?
A lot of clutter.
Yeah.
Well, Fee, you're definitely one of the originals. We can't wait for the show this weekend. We really appreciate your time, and
no
hope
problem.
hope the tubes continue rocking for a good time forward. Thank you so much
we will.
for every time.
We're already making plans. It looks like we're gonna release a DVD next year and go back to Europe and kind of take advantage of all the work and press we've gotten this trip, and so I'm not going anywhere.
More coming.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Okay, man. Jay, take care. Okay.